Hey everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
And today we are all about those humpback whales.
Plus, of course, we have an exciting story featuring many, many humpback whales.
So sit back and enjoy as we deep dive into humpbacks. Let's talk about humpback whales. Humpback whales are in the group of baleen whales, so the whales that don't have teeth but instead have these filtering comb things in their mouth, and that helps them to eat their diet of krill, plankton, and small fish. They eat about 3,000 pounds a day, which Nicole helpfully has pointed out is the same as about 2.5 polar bears, which is a lot of food.
Mm-hmm.
They are about 12 to 19 meters, or about as long as a 10-pin bowling lane, in length, and 25 to 36 metric tons, or 5 Tyrannosaurus rexes. So they're pretty big, but they are definitely, obviously, not the largest baleen whales, because that belongs to the blue whales. Currently, there's about 30 to 60,000 humpback whales worldwide, and we estimate that that's about a third of their historic numbers, which, I mean, is a pretty rough estimate, but probably a pretty accurate one. The main reason for their decline is whaling, but whaling has been banned since 1966. So since then, they've on the IUCN listing of endangered species, they are listed as least concern. And I know here locally we're in Vancouver, and off our coast, the humpback whales have had a huge resurgence over the last 20 or 30 years compared to when I was a kid. You never saw humpbacks anywhere, and now people see them all the time, which is amazing. Humpback whales are found worldwide in lots of distinct populations. They generally breed in equatorial or tropical areas and then migrate a huge migration up to polar regions. There's one exception to this, so stay tuned for more on that. Humpbacks are known for their knobby heads. They've got these little tubercles, which are like big hair follicles. So you don't think of whales as having hair, but they are mammals, and one of the characteristics of mammals is that they are hairy, or like have the potential to grow hairs. And so each one of those knobs has a single hair. They have insanely long pectoral fins. Their pectoral fins are a third of their body length. They can be identified to individuals using their ventral or underneath side fluke pattern, so that when they dive and stick their tails up, and you've seen this picture. If you're listening to this podcast, you have seen a picture of a humpback fluke or some kind of fluking baleen whale. And so the patterning on the underside of their tail is how they tell them apart. They do amazing acrobatics, jumps and breaching and all kinds of crazy stuff. And their probably most famous thing is their song. So Lindsay's going to talk a little bit more about their song.
Humpbacks are not the only whales that sing. Blue whales, fin whales, bowheads, minke whales, and now they've been recording some right whales. I don't know if that's an official song, but they make noises, and all sorts of different kinds of whales sing. But humpbacks are the best studied, probably the first ones as well to be recorded. So everything we say here is going to be about humpbacks. So only the males sing. And the songs are 10 to 20 minutes long and can be repeated continuously for hours, even over 20 hours. And so that's a crazy long time. And they can also be heard from 20 miles or 30 kilometers away, which is insane. But sound does travel better in waters.
Can I just point out something that is occurring to me right now about how long that song is going on for? So you know when you get a song stuck in your head?
Yeah, it's going to be like that.
It's basically like that. It would be awful.
But when they're singing,
you're not the only one.
You're not the only one, and there's a purpose for their singing.
I guess that's true.
When you have an annoying song in your head, like how I've had I Just Can't Wait to Be King stuck in my head for all of July, there's no purpose to that except to keep me awake at night. When humpback males sing, it's to get some. So,
Possibly.
That's the main reason that they suspect. Songs are often sung during breeding season, but can be heard year-round, which is why it's confusing. How songs are created and why they sing are still in question. We don't know the answer to. There's lots of crazy information of humpback songs changing. There's only all the males in the same population sing the same song with slight variations, but they change it, and then sometimes humpbacks in a completely different population have the same variation song or something. Like, it's so weird how this happens and how all humpbacks around the world seem to end up singing almost the same song. So it's a super crazy thing that's continuously being studied. It's been studied for like decades now, and we still know very little about it. But it's really cool, and we will put a link to some songs in the show notes.
Indeed. One of the things that we have learned is how physically humpbacks sing. And although for all of us listening to this podcast, because we're likely all human beings, unless you got a cat out there that really likes humpback whales, it seems really strange for us to think about, okay, physically in our body, how do we sing? Because we take it for granted that we all have voice boxes and that they vibrate and that that's how we both speak and sing. But humpback whales don't. And so it was actually pretty cool for scientists to learn how they created the vocals for these sounds, because, and this is one of the things that makes it a song characteristically as opposed to vocals, which almost every cetacean vocalizes, but not every cetacean sings, and the way in which the song is produced physically in their body is what kind of characterizes it as well. It's one of the things that characterizes it as a song. So I'm going to tell you very, very briefly how that happens, but because it's kind of better to visualize it, there is another link in the show notes to a video that someone made. I'm just blanking on the name right now, but somebody made a TED Talk about how it happens physically in a humpback whale's body with animation, and it's great. So we'll link to that. But basically, they don't have to breathe in order to sing.
Yeah, because they do it underwater where they don't breathe.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just kind of crazy when you think about how we sing. But they have air or oxygen in their lungs, and that is then squeezed over a fold of tissue that vibrates called the U-fold, which then sends that air into big sacs called laryngeal. I can't pronounce that word, but it's an inflatable organ that is just there to resonate or to echo sound that then echoes out into the ocean. So it's a closed system. The air that goes into those laryngeal sacs is recycled back through the U-fold back to the lungs. So that's why they can do it for 20 hours straight. The other thing that characterizes a song as a song is its components. If we have any people who are listening to this podcast who are music nerds, some of these terms will be familiar to you. But basically, you can break a humpback whale song down into the same technical components that you can break a song by AC/DC or Charlotte Church and anyone in between.
Those are random choices.
Yep. So every song, humpback whales included, has a hierarchical structure, which means there are small things that are units, which are moans or whistles or in a human voice sort of notes, that then are repeated to form slightly larger things called phrases. And then those phrases are repeated and changed to create themes. Think of the Star Wars theme. And all the different characters who have themes in Star Wars, musical themes. And then those themes repeat in a pattern. That is what makes a song, whether it is a human song or a humpback whale song. So they're quite complicated, much more complicated when you if you ever see what sound looks like, if you can have one of those sort of, even your iPhone can do it when you're recording something like a podcast and you're watching how your voice moves on the screen. It's a lot easier to see these components that way than to just kind of hear them.
Mm-hmm. I would just like to say before I get an angry text that the music in Star Wars is not songs because there are no lyrics. They are pieces.
Yes.
But still fall under the same definition as humpback songs. Yes. Anyway, Now we've covered our bases from the actual music nerd who is listening.
Yay! Thank you very much. As Lindsay alluded to, the songs that humpbacks sing do... So technically, sorry, I'm going to go back to this. Technically, according to music terminology, a humpback song would be a piece, wouldn't it?
I don't know. They use their...
It depends if you...
voice.
But it's not their voice, because they don't have a voice box.
I don't know, you're going to have to ask the music nerd.
But they're communicating more than just... I mean, you communicate with music.
Yeah.
Even when it doesn't have lyrics, but, like... there is potentially some aspect of, like, the same, like, verbal type communication, whatever they have the ability to do.
Yeah, I would call them a song, because, like, if you think of operatic arias or something, like, obviously they're usually words in different languages, but, you know, when Ariel goes, sorry, everyone.
That was amazing.
That, I guess, would be defined as a song, because she's singing a lyric that you would write down. I have no idea.
This is an interesting discussion that probably will only happen here.
Yeah.
But we would like you to weigh in. If you're a music nerd and a humpback whale nerd, piece or song, you decide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of how you want to term them, they do change, as Lindsay mentioned. And the changes to these songs happen both within the population. So each population tends to have their own song, though the song does then kind of travel globally from population to population, which we'll get to in a second. So within a population, the song does change from year to year. Minor changes happen. So those sort of small components, the units, the moans or the whistles, may change tone, may change order. Phrases are kind of added or changed a little bit or dropped over time. But for usually 3 to 5 years, you will kind of hear the same general song from one population of humpbacks. Then what happens is a cultural revolution. So the best example we have of this, because it's actually been documented and as the change was happening, is in the Australian population of humpback whales, where the feeding grounds for the eastern Australian populations and the western Australian populations are in the same place, but those two populations are very distinct and they have different songs. However, since they're coming together at the feeding grounds and the songs are generally sung during the breeding season, but they kind of get sung throughout the rest of the year, just, you know, because you sometimes have a song stuck in your head. We don't really know why they do it. So they do sometimes sing at the feeding grounds, but not in anywhere the same frequency or number of humpback whales singing. But at those feeding grounds, the eastern population gets to hear what the western population is singing about, and then they bring that back to the eastern population. I don't know why it doesn't go both ways. Apparently the west is the trendsetter in this situation. But the eastern population brings it back to their population, and their song has completely changed to what the western population was singing. So that's the cultural revolution, a completely new song, though it is much less complex than, let's say, the 5-year-old version of the song they were singing before they all decided to change. And then that song that they've taken from the western population will get more complex and change slightly over another 3 to 5 years before they, again, like what the western population is doing.
Random.
Some thoughts on why they are less complex is just because the more complex version of what the western population is doing is just too hard to learn. So you kind of pick and choose what you like that the west is doing that's easy to remember and bring back to your eastern breeding grounds. Be like, yeah, I picked up something new for you, ladies. If that's why they're singing at all. There is an incredible article detailing all of this, and that actually kind of came up with a model, like a computer generated model of how this change occurs based on individuals. It's another, we like to point out when science is free for people to read. So this is another scientific article where you can read the entire thing, not just the abstract. So that's linked in our show notes. And it shows that changes in humpback whale songs have to do with feeding ground size, that will impact how quickly a song changes. The length of the migration route to get back and forth from the feeding ground to your breeding ground. So I guess how long you have to kind of repeat the song in your head before you have to really, really sing it. And also the number of populations the number of individuals in the population. So those three things seem to be, based on this computer model, the most important when it comes to the change in a song. It is a really cool article. I recommend checking it out. Additionally, what is really, really cool about songs, at least what I thought was really, really cool about songs, is they do change, as we've talked about. But vocals from humpback whales don't. And this has also been proven scientifically, because in an Alaskan study, they could record very different songs in their humpback populations over the course of 30 years. But for 36 years, their vocals, distinct from their songs, stayed exactly the same. Strange, strange, strange. So then that brings us to, why are they singing in the first place? And as we've alluded to, no one actually knows the answer to this because we can't ask them. And it's surprisingly hard to study what they're doing underwater all the time when they are singing. So a lot of people assume that it is to attract a mate because it is only the males that are singing, though there are some other things we know about humpback whale songs that actually suggest the mating doesn't make any sense for a reason for them to sing, because every single male is singing the same song, and they're often singing when there aren't females around. There are sometimes when they're singing when females are around, but you also just find males practicing all the time. So another theory is that it might be a way that we don't understand to transmit information, that all of those moans and whistles and phrases actually mean things, and especially because of how that Cultural Revolution works, that they're picking up information and transmitting it to each other in the form of a song because it's easy to remember. So it might be something that's actually really important for that information to be transmitted. It may be a way of marking territory, since different populations have different songs. And I like this one. It might also be a way of tracking your friends.
Aww.
Yeah, because if you sing the same song as me, then even though we don't see each other very often, we're buddies. We're in the same population.
Yeah.
Is it like how we used to sing Super Friends in Costco together?
Yes, exactly. I'm over here. Find me.
Yeah. Or like a really long game of Marco Polo.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A 20-hour long game of Marco Polo. Unfortunately, we do know, since we have been studying these songs for a long time, that shipping noise will impact the duration of the song and also the volume of the song and how many individuals are singing. So as shipping traffic increases in our oceans, it is highly possible that humpback whale songs will decrease. We have seen them decrease. Humpbacks reduce and sometimes even stop singing entirely when they hear shipping noise that is over 200 kilometers away from them. So considering their song can only be heard 30 kilometers away, they're obviously very, very sensitive to underwater noise, and that could, since we don't know what the point of these songs are, if it's something that is essential for these populations, as shipping increases and shipping noise increases, that can be a really big problem. So one of the things that you can do at home to help specifically with humpback songs is try and buy locally to try and decrease the need for global shipping, but also if you live coastally, and even if you don't, figure out how your things are getting to you, like how all of the commercial products that you buy get to your city regardless of where you live, and see what those major shipping companies are doing to try and reduce their noise. We live in a coastal city, and we do a lot of research into what the Port of Vancouver, which is a massive port for things all into North America, is doing to reduce ocean noise, and they're working really hard on it. So if there's a way for you to support that effort wherever you live, wherever your things are coming from, get involved.
Okay, so now it's time for our fun flipper fact.
Yay! Fun flipper fact, it's fun flipper facts.
Today marks the first time that our patrons on Patreon got to choose the topic for our Fun Flipper Fact.
Yay!
And this month's Fun Flipper Fact is all about humpback whales, which is very convenient for us. So thanks so much to our patrons on Patreon. If you want to check out how to support us financially and also get cool perks like getting to vote on the content of our podcast, you can check us out on patreon.com/whaletales. Nicole is going to share our awesome Fun Flipper Fact.
Yay! So, patrons, since you chose a Fun Flipper Fact about humpback whales, but we were already planning on talking about humpback whales a lot, we have a very special humpback whale Fun Flipper Fact for you. That's hard to say many times fast. And it's about the, as Sarah alluded to, strange non-migratory population of humpback whales. This is a very small population of humpback whales that's found in the Arabian Sea. Arabian Sea. If you're like me and geography's hard, I had to look up where the Arabian Sea was because there's a lot of water over there. So specifically, the Arabian Sea is bordered by India on the east, Pakistan and Iran on the north, and then Oman and Yemen on the west. And then the Indian Ocean on the south. So it is a sea, so it's connected to an ocean. So that's where it is. And the humpbacks that live there have been genetically distinct from the other humpback populations in the Indian Ocean for over 70,000 years.
That's a long time.
It's a real long time. Really, really long time. And no one really knows why they split off. But what does make them distinct is that they don't go anywhere. They never leave the Arabian Sea. So they do not have an annual migration. They do have like breeding grounds versus feeding grounds, but they're not far away. And they kind of can breed and feed whenever they want. Small population that lives there, there's thought to be only about 100. And the most likely theory on why they don't migrate is because in the Arabian Sea, there are massive seasonal upwellings of cold, nutrient-rich water, which means there's lots of food around, but it's also a somewhat sheltered, calm area for mating, calving, and nursing. So you got all your things covered in the Arabian Sea. One other cool thing about the Arabian Sea population is that they sing. Since we were talking about songs earlier, I just wanted to point out that even though they don't migrate and they have all of their needs met in one small space and they're completely isolated from every other humpback whale population, they have been recorded singing and their songs do change. So there you go. So that is your Fun Flipper Fact on the Arabian non-migratory humpback whale population. Enjoy.
And now it's time for our whale tale of the week. Lindsay has a great one for you. So Lindsay, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so this is an old story from 2006, way back when, in mid-July, when I was doing the marine mammal course up in Banfield, which is on the west coast of Vancouver Island, for those who don't know. We were on a 4-day expedition traveling further north up the coast of Vancouver Island to photograph gray whales, humpback whales, and hopefully killer whales if we saw them. We were with a scientific photographer who was taking photos for a photo ID catalog of gray whales, so we had to stop for every gray whale that we saw, and gray whales are super hard to add to photo ID catalogs properly. They have to get the right side and the left side of their dorsal hump, like of their knuckles, I think that's what they're called. And that's annoying. And then you also have to wait for them to fluke. And if you've ever waited for any kind of whale to fluke, it takes forever. And you have to be in the right position, so you might have to try again, and they might half fluke or whatever. So we sat around and waited for gray whales to do stuff. A lot.
That sounds so exciting.
It was not. A gray whale snotted in my face, and then I almost threw up in his blowhole because tit for tat. It's the worst thing. But anyway, that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story is on our last day, we were actually spent 3 days going up and 1 day coming back. So we were up in the New Chatlets, which is for far up the west coast of Vancouver Island. We got up super early. We were camping, and it was an incredible day, even though it was like 15 hours of boat ride. We started, I got out of the tent and looked out, and there were sea otters there, which from someone who spent a lot of time learning and just sharing stories about the reintroduction of sea otters on Vancouver Island, that was a pretty amazing thing. That day we saw humpbacks, harbor porpoises and Dall's porpoises, and gray whales. And there was also a coccolithiform bloom, which is a blue-green algae, which makes the water super green. You'll see in the pictures we put up on the show notes. But it also makes animals come closer to shore because the upwellings and the nutrients are all out of whack. So we were headed down the coast and we saw this fin flipping out in the air. We were like, that must be some kind of dolphin. And we got closer to it and it was a mola mola. No. Which was so weird. And you'll see in the link that we put up that I have no photographs of it because I was just like, what in the God's name, what is this thing? And then we saw another one as well, and it was super weird and super awesome. Mola molas are the best.
Can I share a mola mola fact, even though this is a whale podcast and not a fish podcast?
Sure.
Mola molas are technically plankton, even though they're fish. Because the definition of a plankton is something that can't swim against a current, and a mola mola can't swim against a current, so that makes it a plankton, even though it's fish, and it's awesome.
That's because they're the best. Further down the coast, we saw more small dorsal fins, and we got very excited because first we thought they were killer whales, which we hadn't seen at all. And then we thought they were lags, which I still, to this day, have not seen in the wild, and it really bothers me.
Lags being Pacific white-sided dolphins.
But they turned out to be Risso's dolphins, which was super weird and really awesome. Crazy to look at and see. We have lots of photos I'll put up in the story, but they were super cool. And at that point was when our prof called on the radio to see when we were coming back, and we're like, we just saw Risso's and a blah, blah, blah. And he's like, where are you?
On our way to Hawaii?
Yeah. And I'm like, no, we're fine. I can see land. Like, it'll be fine. We'll be home soon. We were not home soon because by the time we got in view of Long Beach and Ukiuit, we were in a crazy humpback soup. So we were going kind of crazy because we were like 40 minutes from land, but we were like 5 hours on just standing there being on the boat with all of these crazy humpbacks. There was a lot of peg slapping. There was, I think, the first breach I've ever seen in the wild, which was pretty amazing. Tons and tons of flukes, of course, all in this like incredibly green water. It was such a weird, crazy experience, but obviously one that has been really special to me since it's been 13 years since, and it's one of my favorite stories I've had with whales. I just remember going incredibly stir crazy, looking at whales, looking at land, never wanting to go to Ukiuit more in my life, and then just getting back to the science station and like running up the big long hill at Banfield and like telling our prof and our TA about what we had just seen, and like it all spilling out and we could barely stand because had been on water for so long, and just like all of these things we were trying to tell them, and they're just like, where have you been? So it was amazing. We never did see killer whales, but that's fine because my project was on humpbacks, and we got a lot of fluke pictures. We made our own ID catalog for the animals in Clayoquot Sound, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So that was my story.
Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing, Lindsay. And if you would like to read this and other humpback whale stories, you can always do so on our website at whale-tales.org. There are 203 humpback whale stories there currently.
There will be more by the time this episode comes out. There will be more for sure.
Yay!
So this episode is coming out on the last day of July, but that doesn't mean that Plastic Free July, you could just stop and go back to your normal ways. Everybody should keep it going all year round with what you've learned, what you've become aware with what the plastic you're using, and just work to continue to reduce your single plastic use, and reduce and reuse all your other stuff as well. Does anybody have any tips that they learned this Plastic-Free July?
I guess it wasn't this July, but I have been being more organized about it, and that is having refillable bulk containers. So lots of stores will let you bring your own clean and like cleanable containers to use to get bulk items. So the one that I go to, when you go in, they will write the weight of your empty containers on all your containers, and then so you don't have to it's not costing you extra. And then I go around and fill up all my stuff. I get like pasta, rice, spices are like an amazing deal because you just get as many as you need at that time. Nuts and seeds and all kinds of cool stuff, flour. And I like this crazy person because I like go there on the bus usually, so I have them all like wrapped in tea towels because they're usually glass jars mostly, and then so they don't like clank around while I'm walking there or walking to the bus and stuff. And then so I'm like unwrapping them at the thing, and it's fine because it's not that busy. And yeah, it's great, and it's a really good deal. And I mean it is a little bit annoying because it's a bus ride away, unlike everywhere else that I do all my grocery shopping, but it's usually either on my way to or from visiting friends or family, so it's not that bad, and it both makes my pantry really organized. I don't have any like dodgily sealed up plastic bags of rice or anything that gets like moths or gets moldy or anything, and it's also good to reduce the amount of plastic. So, and also I think for me anyways, it reduces the amount of waste because I just buy exactly what I need. So that's been the thing that I've been trying to be more organized with, especially this July, but in general since I moved into a place that actually has enough cupboard space to make it worthwhile.
That's awesome, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
That's my plastic-free thing.
Yeah, it's very like,
I mean,
Road to Avonlea, like those old kinds of
that's the thing I like about
grocery stores. Yeah.
I like you had me at your pantry looks more organized.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really because it's a small cupboard in there, but it has the potential to look more organized once I get better shelving.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will share mine. So my tips all tend to be about raising a child. Soon I'll go back to work and then I may have more exciting things happening. Well, no, sorry. Soon I'll go back to work and then I may have other things going on in my life. But I was very, very excited that this Plastic-Free July, and for a number of months leading up to it, I have been able to get over my fear of cloth diapers and have been able to use cloth diapers with my son. So when I was pregnant and I was researching cloth versus disposable, I got really, really overwhelmed. And we have a really old washer and dryer in our house that we know we need to be updated, but they use a lot of water, and so I was really worried about the environmental impact from a water and energy perspective of using cloth diapers, and also the mess because life. And I just decided, I was going to focus on every other thing I could to raise a sustainably minded child in a sustainably minded house, but that I was going to do disposable diapers because I needed one thing in my life to be easy. And then thanks to a friend of ours who basically not forced, but lovingly gave me some of her cloth diapers from when her daughter was younger and said, look, just try them. They're a lot easier than you think. And then if you don't want them, just give them back and I'll give them to somebody else to try. So she gave me basically a whole starter set of cloth diapers because the cost was also a little bit prohibitive for me. They are expensive, or can
especially
be expensive
with newborns when they last like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then again, the washing. And she was right. They are amazing and so much easier than I thought they were going to be. But if she hadn't given them to me to try, I really don't think that I would have made the commitment to do it. So huge thanks and shout out to our friend Paula for doing that for me, because I feel really good about it, and I've been able to pay it forward as well. So after getting that starter set from our friend, I invested in a few different brands because I'm me and I'm a nerd, and I decided I did like cloth diapers. I did
Ravenclaw.
Yep. I did a full-blown like spreadsheet test over the course of 2 weeks into all the different cloth diaper brands that were available to me, to see which ones worked the best for my son and his fit and his regularity, I guess. I have that spreadsheet available, and I have shared it with many other parents when we've gotten into talking about diapers, because what worked best for my son may not be what works best for you, so I have all of the results. If you're interested, I'll share that with you too. But I was then able to share that, and also to share some of the diapers I had that weren't working for my son with some other mom friends of mine, and help them see that it's really not so scary, because when you look on the internet about it, it can be really overwhelming and very judgy. Like, that was really kind of what set me off, was that it got very preachy and very judgy very quickly, whereas when a friend was just talking to me about it and not shoving it down my throat, but actually just saying, like, here, just give it a try. If you don't like it, whatever, I'm still gonna be your friend. That really made the difference for me. So hopefully, for those of you who are listening who do have kids, you give it a shot. This is not meant to be preachy or judgy. I just went on a trip in July with my son when I know it's plastic-free July, and I still had to use some disposables because airplanes are hard. So I totally understand, but it's the point of plastic-free July is doing your best. So that's what I'm trying to do. And you do what works for you, which is also my mantra for parenthood. You do what works for you.
Yeah, and just on a very similar note, this isn't my tip, but just something to add is judgy internet people. The same goes for Plastic Free July when you're looking into what kind of sanitary items, if feminine products, you would like to use as yourself. I was judged super harshly as a student at university, and that's obviously stayed with me for many years now, from a person who knew nothing about my needs. And so it's just something to think about when you're thinking about your plastic-free July, about what you can do to reduce your impact from that standpoint, if it's possible. So there's lots of different options. If you would like to talk to us, we have a variety of different things that we use across the three of us. And we'd be happy to share in a private message. Anyway, I think the other thing I wanted to talk about from this Plastic-Free July is a little bit weird, and kind of goes hand in hand with what Nicole was saying about other energy waste, and also with shipping and vessel noise, is that I was really planning on looking into getting silk or glass floss, because floss is made of plastic. And I like to floss, because I got into the habit, which you should too. Everybody floss. But it's plastic, and it comes in a plastic container. However, the best glass or silk floss is super expensive. There's a bunch of different varieties, and some of it comes from really far away, like New Zealand, which seems very bass-backwards to me. Is getting plastic-free floss shipped to me from New Zealand is definitely more wasteful than going across the street by foot and buying plastic floss. So this is something to think about when it comes to plastic items, when it comes to shipping anything versus going to buy it, and when it comes also to shipping something rush and stuff, because when stuff is shipped on rush, it goes by itself in a truck as opposed to normal shipping when the truck is full. So these are all stuff to think about. It's not just about plastic, especially as we move out of Plastic Free July. It's about reducing your waste everywhere. If you can walk across the street to buy something that's plastic, it's probably going to be less waste, especially oil waste. Like, like a ship bringing my floss from New Zealand is also producing oil waste that the plastic that my floss is in is less. So it's less money for everybody. It's less time. And so it might just be the better deal. Like, this is the thing. Living plastic free is impossible. Let's just deal with that. It's in 2019. So it's reducing what you can, and reducing not just plastic, reducing all of your waste, reducing your energy waste, reducing any kind of waste, reusing your stuff, fixing clothes, all of that kind of stuff is what you should be looking at in whatever way you can. No judging.
So I think that is probably an appropriate place for us to end this episode. As always, we do have all of these tips and more on our What You Can Do page, and that link is in our show notes. Plus, you can find it on our website under Tales of Saving Whales, where you can also find other ideas that people are doing to try and help save whales in the world. The world.
You can also find all the links to subscribe to our podcast on the left-hand side of our website. Or you can subscribe through your podcast catcher of choice, or you can just go directly to our website and listen.
Other exciting items on our website include a link to our merchandise. You can find us on Redbubble. We've got awesome shirts, mugs, stickers, bags, and more. Although, find some friends and ship it all together to save plastic and shipping costs.
True.
Yes. If you like us, and what will...
How could you not after this?
Right? But more so, if you enjoy this podcast and you like what we do, both on the podcast and at Whale Tales, please consider supporting us and what we're doing by heading over to our Patreon page. By becoming a patron, you get to vote in polls that decide on what we talk about. Thanks again to patrons for syncing up mentally with us this week. That was awesome. But even if it doesn't, we will still honor what the patrons vote on for our poll for our Fun Flipper Facts, and we'll be expanding what our patrons get to help us decide with soon. Plus, we'll give you shout outs on social media, and it's just really wonderful to see how much we have impacted your lives, and it gives us warm fuzzies. So thank you very, very much.
And if you can't support us on Patreon, you could still help us have warm fuzzies by rating and reviewing us on iTunes or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. It helps other people find the podcast and also lets us know what you think of us and if we talk too much about Disney and floss, for example.
Maybe just a little.
Just a little. You can also follow us on social media at whaleTalesOrg, and you can search for podcast stuff by using the hashtag WhaleTalesPodcast.
Last but definitely not least, because it's the heart of what we do at Whale Tales, if you have a cetacean story to share, please share it. It's why we got started with this website and then this podcast to begin with. We absolutely love reading your stories. So if you have a story that is special to you, even if you don't know if it's going to be special to other people, I promise you it'll be special to us.
And how would they go about telling us about it there, Nick?
Any way they want. You most easily could share it on social media, and you could also go to our website and press the big share button there, or, just call us. Tell us.
So if that was a lot of information to take in, which of course it is, don't worry, you can find the links to everything we just talked about on our website, whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not like the animals. Plus, you can pursue our library of almost 600 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
Thanks again for listening and for supporting us. We will be back on the last Wednesday of next month with more fun facts, stories, and super nerdy trivia that Nicole has researched for us.
Yay! Thanks, everybody, and have a whaley great day!